Hi. So, voters in New Hampshire are about to go to the polls, and it looks like Mitt Romney is probably going to win the Republican primary there. The results out of New Hampshire may also bring an end to the candidacy of Jon Huntsman. Jon Huntsman has been campaigning almost exclusively in New Hampshire, but if you take a look at the polls, then it hasn't really paid off. He has never risen above 12% in the Real Clear Politics average of polls out of New Hampshire. Earlier in the week, I pondered in a post on my blog whether Huntsman could mount a Santorum-style last-minute surge in New Hampshire. With 2 days to go, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, which is a shame because I thought Huntsman was a really appealing candidate. Less than a year into Barack Obama's presidency, my friends and family were asking me, who do you think should run for president in 2012? Who do you think is the best Republican candidate to run against Barack Obama in 2012? And I kept telling them that the guy that I liked was Jon Huntsman. I was very impressed by his record as governor of Utah. He reduced taxes, flattened the state's income tax, cut the sales tax, signed laws protecting the lives of the unborn, and shepherded a market-based healthcare reform law through the state legislature. Perhaps his most significant achievement as governor was what the Heritage Foundation called the country's most expansive school choice program. On almost every major domestic policy issue, it seems that Jon Huntsman has at least one major accomplishment getting the conservative agenda enacted in Utah. It's really remarkable. And he's also got solid foreign policy credentials, too. He served as ambassador to Singapore during the first Bush administration and as deputy U.S. trade representative during the second Bush administration. And he ran his family business's operations in the Far East for many years, so he's got private sector business experience as well. He's also very youthful and energetic. He's about as perfect a candidate as you can get, which is why I was so confused and a little disappointed when he accepted President Obama's nomination to become ambassador to China. No question he was a good choice, but I thought at the time, what is that position going to entail for the next 4 years other than begging them to buy up more of our treasury bonds? I don't know. But he had a good point about service. If you love your country, he says, then you serve her. Certainly. But by accepting that nomination and becoming U.S. ambassador to China, I figured he had no interest in running for president. Then, last year, he resigned. And when it looked like he was on the verge of entering the race for the Republican presidential nomination, I took to my blog and posted my reasons why Republicans should get behind him, as well as why I believed his campaign wouldn't catch fire. And it never did. Not really. Now, admittedly, he's made a few bizarre campaign moves, as I explained in a previous video. It's interesting. The interesting thing about Huntsman is he hasn't really made a lot of gaffes, or really any big gaffes, or he doesn't really have a problem of saying stupid things. But he's made some rather bizarre campaign choices. And one of those was publicly stating that he was not going to campaign in Iowa. If you want to skip Iowa, then you don't You don't announce it. You basically just don't campaign there and wait for someone to broach the issue. That's kind of what Mitt Romney was doing this time around. And now polls in Iowa have him either first or second. But and he skipped the Values Voters Summit, or maybe that wasn't it. Maybe it was some other conservative gathering. I think it was the Values Voters Summit. You can't do stuff like that. I think this is the same shirt I was wearing when we filmed that video. Anyway, look, the other candidates have done weird stuff too, but at some point, each of them has enjoyed a period where Republican primary voters were taking a serious look at them. In fact, every candidate still in the race at this point, as well as Michelle Bachmann and Herman Cain, have risen to the top of the polls in at least one state, except Jon Huntsman. So, to Republican primary goers, I ask, why? What turns you off about Jon Huntsman? Look, he's got a strong conservative record as governor, strong foreign policy credentials, private sector business experience, good family values, 7 kids, for God's sake, including 2 adopted daughters. He's a devoted family man and devout Mormon. What more do you want? Especially to you anybody but Romney voters. Look, if you don't want to vote for Mitt, then your choices are Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, Rick Perry, Ron Paul, or Jon Huntsman. Is this really that hard a choice for you to make? By the way, consider this. If Mitt Romney's the nominee, then we know what the line of attack will be against him in the general election. Yeah, his lackluster jobs record as governor of Massachusetts. We'll hear about every business that Bain Capital couldn't save and all the money that Romney made. They'll say he's a flip-flopper who changes his position based on what he thinks voters want to hear. By the way, I've conducted a detailed analysis of that charge, broken it down, and I believe proven that it is baseless, but you can judge for yourself. These are all pretty cheap attacks that don't hold water, especially when you compare them to Obama's dismal record, but stupid and ignorant voters, aka the people who decide elections, will eat that stuff up. Let me ask you something else. If Jon Huntsman is our nominee, then what's going to be the attack on him? Think about that. What can Obama possibly go after Jon Huntsman on? What legitimate attack is there against Jon Huntsman that will actually resonate with voters? Now, admittedly, there are good reasons for voters to have reservations about Jon Huntsman. His performances in the Republican debates have been less than stellar. And, I never thought Obama was that good of a debater. Frankly, I think the only reason he has a reputation as a great debater is that in 2008, after every debate, his acolytes in the media would take to the airwaves and gush about how awesome he was, and that shaped public opinion. But, no question, we should put a good debater up against Barack Obama if we're to defeat him in the general election, and I don't contest that Mitt Romney has performed well in the debates this cycle. But for those of you who aren't satisfied with Mitt Romney, let me submit one final point for your consideration. There is only one candidate who is both more conservative and more electable than Mitt Romney, and that's Jon Huntsman. Now, that's my opinion, but I will take on anyone who feels differently. If you want to challenge me on that, then, engage me. Post a comment or a response. Let's roll. Look, New Hampshire voters, I know that the critical role you play in our nominating process is not lost on you. And let's face it, after you vote, it's going to be a two-man race going into South Carolina. It's going to be Romney versus whoever comes in second in South Carolina. And he better come in a strong second, or else Romney's got this thing all sewn up. Look, now, you make your own decisions. I think you got a superlative choice in Jon Huntsman, but it's your call to make. And finally, South Carolina voters, if Romney wins big in New Hampshire, then please don't screw this up by picking someone else. We need to wrap this thing up and coalesce around our nominee so that we can defeat this arrogant, incompetent, freedom-trampling, America-shaming, fear-mongering, job-killing, dishonest, hypocritical travesty of a president in November. Thank you, and God bless America.